Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep into sound healing today. It's going to be pretty interesting because we've got a lot of different sources here. Scientific research, ancient traditions, personal stories. So let's see what we find, huh?
Yeah, it's really intriguing to think about, sound is all around us every day, right?
Mm,
But could it have this power to heal and transform us, like way deeper than we even realize?
that's exactly what we're here to explore. One of the books we're looking at is Healing Sounds.
Yeah.
And it starts off by explaining this idea that everything in the universe, everything is vibrating at a specific frequency.
hmm
And sound, the sounds we hear, are just one form of that vibration.
Right, right.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it like that. And the book even goes on to quote the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. It's like, whoa, sound was there at the very beginning. It makes you think about the power of sound.
Definitely. And that idea really resonates with, well, what we see in so many different ancient cultures. You think about Tibetan monks with their chanting bowls, or Aboriginal shamans playing the didgeridoo. There's all these ancient traditions that use sound, for healing, for spiritual practices. It's like they all understood this power of sound, this ability to heal and connect us to something bigger.
It's amazing to see how all those traditions were already onto something that, well, modern science is just now starting to really get.
It is.
Because the research shows that sound can actually physically alter molecular structures.
Yeah.
Like change things at a really basic level. And not just that, it can influence our biological processes too. Like, whoa, sound can change our bodies.
It really can. And one area where this connection between ancient traditions and modern science gets really interesting is vocal harmonics. Remember those Tibetan monks we talked about? There's a pretty amazing story about a sound researcher named Jonathan Goldman who was studying this unique one voice chord these monks could create. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah, I remember reading about that. It's this super deep resonant sound, but then there are these like high ethereal overtones that come with it. Yeah. It's kind of otherworldly when you hear it like from another dimension almost.
Yeah, it's really something else. And get this, Goldman and a colleague, they were listening to recordings of the monks chanting this one voice chord, and they were both able to just start doing it themselves, seemingly overnight. Like the sound itself imprinted on their brains and just boom, unlocked this hidden vocal ability.
No way. That's incredible. It makes you wonder, like, what other hidden abilities do we have just waiting to be unlocked by the right sounds, But how does science explain that? I mean, how is that even possible?
It all comes down to overtones. They're these higher frequency sound waves, and they're related mathematically to the fundamental tone, the main note you're singing. It's like when you pluck a guitar string. The whole string vibrates, creating that main note, but then different parts of the string vibrate at faster rates too, right? And those are the overtones.
So when you hear someone singing with overtones, you're actually hearing all those different frequencies at the same time, blending together.
Exactly. And you can use different techniques to make different overtones stand out more, so you can get all these different sonic textures and effects. It's pretty cool. Healing Sounds actually has some exercises you can try if you want to start exploring this yourself.
Wait, really? What kind of exercises? You're not going to make me sing on the air, are you?
No singing required. Well, not yet anyway. But one exercise involves using vowel sounds and specific phonemes like or NNUURR, or even NN to kind of shape your mouth and vocal tract in a way that lets the overtones come out more.
NN jaw. Are you serious? That sounds more like I'm trying to be a gong than like singing anything.
It might feel weird at first, for sure, but the point is just to try different things and see what you can make your voice do, Because what might sound strange to our ears could actually be like a deeply resonant frequency, one that our bodies and minds totally respond to, in a powerful way.
That's true. That's true. One thing that really struck me while I was reading through all this stuff was how different cultures throughout history have used vowel sounds in their healing and spiritual practices. We've already talked about the Tibetan monks, but there's also the Kabbalah. That's a Jewish mystical tradition. And they associate specific vowel sounds with divine energies. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's not just the Kabbalah either. You see similar ideas in ancient Egyptian and Greek traditions, even in some Native American cultures too. So it makes you think, right? Like maybe there's something special about these vowel sounds, some way they resonate within us that's just inherently powerful.
It makes you wonder if all these cultures somehow, tapped into some fundamental truth about the relationship between sound and human consciousness, like they were ahead of the curve.
Maybe they were. I mean, that's a question researchers are trying to figure out now. Some believe that vocal harmonics, especially the ones you create when you're chanting vowels, they can change our brainwave patterns. Like they can induce meditative states and maybe even affect our nervous system.
So it's like, what, a sonic massage for your brain?
Yeah.
But you're using your voice instead of your hands.
Exactly. And remember Jonathan Goldman, the one who learned the Tibetan monks' one voice chord? He did a lot of experiments with different vowel sounds, and he found that each vowel seemed to produce a unique set of overtones. And those overtones, they had specific effects on his body and his mind, different vowels, different effects.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. He even came up with this whole system where he assigned each vowel sound to a specific energy form. It was based on his own experiences and his research into all those ancient traditions.
That's right. And that connects back to the Kabbalah too. They assign specific qualities and powers to each vowel sound as well. It's like, those ancient traditions were tapping into something that science is just now beginning to understand. Pretty wild.
Yeah, this is getting really deep. It's like we're looking into this hidden world, and sound isn't just something you hear anymore. It's like a force that can shape our reality. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's get a little more practical. Our sources mention a few specific sound healing techniques, like toning and overtoning. Can we talk about those?
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? I think those deserve their own section.
Yeah.
We've already gone over a ton of stuff. From the science of sound to ancient traditions to personal stories. It's a lot, and maybe our listener needs a minute to, absorb all that before we keep going.
You're right. We've thrown a lot at them. So for our listener out there, think about the sounds in your own life.
Yeah.
Which sounds really resonate with you? Which ones make you feel good? Maybe even try experimenting with some of those vowel sounds we were talking about. You never know what you might discover. We'll be back in a bit to explore those sound healing techniques, so hang tight.
So are you ready to dive into some actual sound healing techniques?
Oh, absolutely. Last time we got pretty deep into the science-y stuff and all those ancient traditions, right?
Yeah.
And how they already knew about the power of sound. But now I want to hear about how people are using this stuff in real life. What about those techniques you mentioned before the break, toning and overtoning? What are those all about?
Okay, so toning, it's basically using your voice for healing. Like you're creating specific sounds, often vowels, with the intention of, influencing your well-being, whether it's physical or emotional.
So it's not really like singing a song, more like using your voice as like an instrument to create vibrations.
Exactly. One of our sources, this book called Toning, The Power of the Voice to Heal, it talks about this woman, Laurel Elizabeth Keyes. She was a real pioneer in this field, and she believed that illness, you could see it as a disruption of the body's natural harmonic patterns, and that using specific vocal sounds could help to restore those patterns. And that's how the healing happens.
It's like you're using your voice to retune your body, like it's a musical instrument that's gone out of tune.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And then there's overtoning, which takes that idea of restoring harmony with the voice even further.
Oh yeah, this is the one where you project those vocal harmonics into someone else's body to help them heal.
That's the idea. It sounds kind of wild, I know, but one of our sources, Healing Sounds, tells this story about the author going to a toning workshop. And while someone was toning, they heard these strange sounds, almost like a hidden choir singing along. And the author believes those were actually harmonics, actively involved in the healing process.
Wow. But how do you learn to do that? Is there a specific technique or something?
It's not exactly easy. It takes a lot of practice and being really aware of what you're doing. Healing Sounds actually has a whole chapter dedicated to overtoning, exploring all the different techniques people use.
So it's not just making random noises, huh? There's actual skill and intention behind it.
Oh, for sure. People who practice overtoning, they believe you can use your focus, your intention, to direct those harmonics towards specific areas of someone's body, like you're promoting healing and balance with sound. It's pretty amazing stuff.
The deeper we get into all this sound healing stuff, the more I realize how connected it all is. We've got these ancient traditions that have known about this power of sound forever, and now science is finally starting to understand how it all works. And it's not just about, using your voice. Music itself plays a huge part in healing and well-being too, right?
Absolutely. It's all connected. Think about how music can affect your mood, your emotions, even your physical health. There's this really cool book called The Healing Power of Music that goes into all that.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that one.
Yeah.
Doesn't it talk about how music can lower stress, reduce pain, even boost your immune system?
Yep, that's the one. And there's this doctor, Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, who actually uses music in his work with cancer patients to help them deal with stress and, connect with their inner strength.
It's pretty mind-blowing that just listening to music can have such a powerful effect.
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you think about how deeply sound can resonate within us, like on a physical and emotional level.
Yeah.
Speaking of resonance, something that keeps coming up in our sources is this idea of chakras. It's a little out there, I know, but how does that tie into sound healing?
Oh, chakras are fascinating. There are these energy centers in your body, and each one is associated with different organs, emotions, even specific frequencies. Eastern spiritual traditions have been talking about them for ages.
Okay, so where does sound fit in with all that?
Well, the basic idea is that each chakra vibrates at a certain frequency. And by using specific sounds, you can, activate and balance those chakras.
So you could target a specific chakra with sound, like use a certain tone to stimulate your heart chakra, for example.
Some people believe you can. There are different systems and techniques that associate certain vowel sounds or musical notes with different chakras. For example, some systems say A goes with the root chakra, U with the sacral chakra, and so on.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. It's like you could create a whole map of the body with sound, where different sounds match up to different areas and energy centers.
I like that, a sonic map of the body. And remember Jonathan Goldman, the guy who learned the Tibetan monks chant? He developed his own system for associating vowel sounds with different energy centers, based on his research and experiences. And he believes that if you chant these specific vowels, you can actually stimulate and balance the corresponding chakras.
It all comes full circle. We're putting together this ancient puzzle, figuring out the hidden connections between sound, the body, and consciousness. It's wild.
It really is. It's a lot to take in, though. Maybe we should pause here again. Give our listeners some time to process all this before we move on to the final part of our sonic exploration.
Good idea. We've covered a lot of ground today. Toning, overtoning, chakras, even how music can help people heal. So to our listener, take a moment to think about everything we've talked about so far. Maybe try experimenting with some of those vowel sounds we mentioned, or just put on some music that makes you feel good. We'll be right back to wrap things up, so stick around. Welcome back.
It's amazing to think about all the ways sound can affect us, from tiny cells in our bodies to maybe even whole societies.
It really is mind-blowing. And we've seen how those ancient traditions, they just intuitively knew about this power of sound for healing, for spirituality. And now science is catching up, starting to explain how it all works. It's pretty exciting. For sure. We've gone over so much already. Vocal harmonics, toning, overtoning, those chakras, even how music can help people with cancer. But as we're wrapping up, I'm curious about what's next. What are some of the newer, more cutting-edge things happening in sound healing right now?
Well, one area that's super interesting is technology. They're using ultrasound now to target and destroy cancer cells. It's like non-invasive surgery with sound waves.
Whoa, seriously? That sounds futuristic.
I know, right? And there's more. They're using sound frequencies to help bones grow, repair tissues, even treat some neurological disorders. It's amazing what they're doing.
It seems like the possibilities are endless. But I wonder, as we're pushing the boundaries like that, are there any ethical concerns we need to be thinking about?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really important point. Whenever you have a new technology or therapy, you got to be careful, right? Make sure it's used responsibly and ethically.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing I've heard is people worrying that sound healing might be used to replace regular medicine, and that could be dangerous.
That's a valid concern, for sure. It's super important to remember that sound healing shouldn't be a substitute for conventional medicine, People need to talk to their doctors, follow their treatment plans. Sound healing can be a really powerful addition, but it shouldn't be the only thing you rely on.
Right. It needs to work together with regular medicine, not replace it.
Exactly. And another thing to think about is the potential for misuse. We've talked about how sound can affect our brains, even put us in altered states of consciousness, right? So we have to make sure these tools are used ethically. With respect for people's free will and their well-being, it's a big responsibility.
It's like anything powerful.
Right.
You can use it for good or bad. It all depends on the person using it. Speaking of intention, one thing that's really stood out to me is how important intention is in sound healing. It's not just about making the right sounds, it's about what you're thinking and feeling while you do it. Your intention. Does that make sense?
Totally. It's absolutely true. Whether you're doing those vocal harmonics, toning, or even just listening to music, your intention really matters. It can make a huge difference.
It's like sonic mindfulness or something, like paying attention to the sounds, how they make you feel, what you're putting out into the world with your voice.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive. Sound is powerful. It can heal, transform, connect us to something bigger. But it's up to us to use that power wisely with good intentions.
So to everyone listening, keep exploring this amazing world of sound. Really listen to what's around you. Try out those vowel sounds. See what happens. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And don't forget about silence. It's in those quiet spaces between the sounds where we can really absorb and process those vibrations. That's where the real healing and transformation can happen.